Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Melissa and I'm the owner of seasonandserveblog.com. In today's video, we are going to be making my recipe for pan-fried pork buns. These pork buns are nice and crispy on the bottom and soft on top, plus the pork filling is extra juicy and delicious. This isn't a traditional dish served for Lunar New Year, but I decided to include it in my Lunar New Year series this year because they are just so good and I've been working on this recipe for a long time and I've finally perfected it. So I thought I could share it with you guys so that you can make it in advance and get even more excited for Lunar New Year. So if you want to see how I make my pan-fried pork buns, just keep on watching. We'll begin by making the dough, and I'm going to make mine in my stand mixer, but you can also do this by hand as well. I fitted it with a dough hook and added in some flour. Next I'm going to add in a bit of granulated white sugar and then a teaspoon of yeast. This helps the buns to rise up and get nice and fluffy when you cook them. Once all those ingredients are added in, we're going to mix everything to combine. Then to bring the dough together, we're going to add some water, and I like adding lukewarm water so it's not hot, it's not cold, it's just perfectly in the middle, and this helps to stimulate the yeast to bloom and get all fluffy. So we're going to mix that all to combine, and as you'll see, it'll start off like a shaggy dough like this, but then eventually after about 3 to 4 minutes of mixing, it'll turn into a nice smooth ball and really come together just like this. Next, remove the dough from the mixer and form it into a round ball. It may look a little bit lumpy, but don't worry about that. As it sits and rises, that'll all go away. Then I simply put the dough ball back into the mixing bowl that I use since it's mostly clean, and then I'm just going to cover it with my beeswax wrapper, and if you don't have these, you can also just cover it with saran wrap. Then I'm going to set it aside in a warm place and let it double in size, and this normally takes about 1 to 2 hours. Next, we'll prepare the pork filling, and one of the main ingredients in it other than pork is scallions. They add so much fresh flavor to it and they are so good. So I'm chopping up 4 here, just removing the ends and then finally chopping it into small pieces. I'm going to set aside the scallions in a separate bowl and not add them into the pork mixture yet. I like adding them in at the very end just so that they stay nice and fresh. So we will set these aside for later. And for the rest of the pork filling, we have some ground pork, of course, and I like to use a medium ground pork that has a little bit of fat, which makes the pork nice and juicy. I'm also adding in some Shaoxing wine, some soy sauce, and also some sesame oil to give it lots of delicious flavor. Then I'm going to add in some ground white pepper and ground Szechuan pepper, and finally grate in some garlic and ginger. And I like to use a microplane to grate this in because I don't really want lumps of garlic and ginger in the pork filling. I want it to be nice and fine and combine really well with the pork. So I'm grating 2 cloves of garlic and a little nub of ginger right into the pork filling. And once those ingredients are all added, we are going to mix everything together. And to get a really good pork filling texture, I like to mix everything together with a pair of chopsticks. And once I get the ingredients all initially combined, I like to mix it using the pair of chopsticks in a single direction. And for some reason, this just helps the pork get like a really, really good texture to it. Of course, you can choose whatever direction you want to go in. I chose clockwise, but you can do counterclockwise as long as it's going in the same direction for the full mixing time. And then near the end of mixing, I'm going to add in some warm water, and this will make sure that the pork is nice and juicy so that when you bite into it, there'll be lots of delicious pork juices coming out. And then once you mix the water in, it will turn a lighter pink color and get a little bit sticky, and this is how you know your pork is perfect. Then I'm going to set this aside in the refrigerator until the dough is risen. Next, we'll get ready to assemble the pork buns, and before we begin, I'm going to add those chopped scallions right into the meat mixture and then mix everything to combine. Then we'll simply move it to the side so that we have space to make our pork buns. To assemble the buns, we're going to remove the dough from the bowl and set it on our work surface. I'm working on a silicone baking mat with a little bit of flour, and I find this is the best for rolling out the pork buns. I'm going to poke a hole in the center of the dough and then roll it into a donut, and this will help me form the dough into a nice long log, which will help us get even pieces. Once your donut is formed, just pinch it in the middle and then roll it into a long log. Try not to press the dough too much because you want to keep the air inside the dough as much as possible at this point. Then to make rolling everything out easier, I'm just going to split the dough in half and keep one half aside. Next, I'm going to pinch off little sections of the dough and weigh them out into 35-gram pieces. I like using a little scale to do this, and this will make sure that every single pork bun is uniform and the same, which will make cooking a lot better. I'm simply going to repeat this process for all the dough that I have out, and then once all the little balls are formed, I'm going to place it under the damp paper towel with the rest of the dough. So to make a pork bun, you're simply going to take a little piece of the dough that you have and add a little bit of flour to make sure that nothing sticks. I'm going to press it down with the palm of my hand to get it into a flat round shape, and then we're going to roll it out. And this looks silly, but I'm going to use a shot glass to do this. I do not have a small dowel, and it's a little bit difficult for me to roll it with a full-size rolling pin, so this works for me. Once the dough has been rolled out, it'll be the same thickness across the entire piece of dough, and we actually want to make the edges of the dough thinner so that it is easier to pleat and fold. So I'm using the shot glass to roll just the edges of the dough to make them thinner. Next, we're going to add in the pork filling, and to make sure every single pork bun is the same, I'm going to weigh it again. So I'm just going to tare the scale, and then I'm going to add 35 grams of the pork filling. And now we're going to fold up the pork buns, and this does take a little bit of practice, but I think this is a really good visual to show you how I do it. So I like to hold it in my left hand, and while that is happening, on my right hand, I am folding the dough in on itself between my right thumb and right pointer finger. And as you can see, as I work my way around the edge, I'm rotating the bun in my left hand. Then when you get to the end, remove your left thumb from the middle and then pinch the top of the pork bun closed. You will often find that you're left with a little bit of dough on top and you don't want that, so gently twist and pinch it off. And there is your first pork bun. Your first one might look a little bit mangled, but it's okay. After a few more tries, you'll definitely get the hang of it. And here is the folding process just one more time. Repeat this process until all the dough is used up, and then we are ready to cook our pork buns. To cook my pork buns, I am going to heat a cast iron pan over medium heat and then add in about a tablespoon of olive oil. I really like using cast iron for this because it conducts and holds the heat really well, and you get a nice little crisp bottom on the pork buns. Then once it's hot, I'm going to add my pork buns into the pan, making sure that they're spaced out about an inch apart because they do expand a little bit when they cook. I'm going to fry them over medium heat for about 1 to 2 minutes or until the bottom of the bun begins to get a nice golden brown. Once it's crispy on the bottom, we are going to add half a cup of water into the pan and then immediately cover it with the lid to allow the pork buns to steam. I'm going to let the pork bun steam for about 10 minutes and then I'm going to remove the lid and continue to cook it until the rest of the water has evaporated off and the bottom of the pork bun has become crispy again. And finally, we're just going to place them on a serving plate and garnish them with a little bit of black sesame seeds and some freshly chopped scallions. You can eat the pork buns just like this, or for something extra, I like to dunk them into a dipping sauce made of soy sauce and black vinegar. And then just give them a big bite and you'll see how delicious and juicy these pan-fried pork buns are. And that is it for today's video. Don't forget, if you enjoyed it, please hit the like button down below as well as the red subscribe button for more recipe videos just like this one. You can also get the full recipe in the description box below or on my food blog as well. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.